Hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrant children are made automatic citizens every year because of this crazy policy.
What you just saw was a clip of Donald Trump all the way back in 2018. I know 2018, it feels like ages ago. It really does. But he even then was going after birthright citizenship. And right now, the Supreme Court is taking up this issue. Back in 2025, I believe it was on day one of Trump's administration, he put forward an executive order that would get rid of birthright citizenship here in the United States. Let me just say, this is an absolutely insane thing to do for so many reasons. But the Supreme Court is taking it up anyways. Luckily, as you can see here, the Supreme Court is casting doubt on Trump's order on birthright citizenship, as they should. But this is already not a very good sign, because the Supreme Court actually decided to take up the case. This issue shouldn't even have been brought to the Supreme Court, because it's a ridiculous issue. It makes absolutely no sense. The United States has had birthright citizenship for so long. It's embedded into this country's history. It states clearly in the 14th Amendment that every individual born inside these United States is a citizen of the United States. They're also under the jurisdiction of United States law. So why all of a sudden bring this up? Quite frankly, I believe it's racism. It's to try to get the sons and daughters of the Latino community to not be citizens so it can make their deportations and strengthen ICE's ability to do mass deportation. That is the goal of this executive order and this policy. Let's not even get into how crazy it is to just try and amend a constitution through executive order. That is one of the craziest things that I have ever heard before. You can't just write out, put forward an executive order that amends the 14th Amendment of the Constitution. You would have to get 2/3 of the states to ratify this, or like a 2/3 majority in Congress, a supermajority. There's such a long process. It is extremely difficult to get constitutional amendments passed into law to add them to the Constitution, or simply even just amend previous constitutional amendments. So, yeah, the president does not have sole authority over something like this, and I'm glad the Supreme Court seems to be skeptical of this. But I can't say I'm feeling confident that they will not side with Trump. This is one of the most conservative Supreme Courts we've had in a while. Remember, they got rid of Roe v. Wade, which was like 52 years of law or something like that. And then they just decided to get rid of it because the people on the Supreme Court are legislating from the bench. They are. This is what Republicans have been fear-mongering about for decades. And now their guys are doing it, and all of a sudden they're just following the letter of the law. They are the biggest projectors out there. They were just saying what they themselves are going to do, but projecting it on other people, other Supreme Court justices. It's absolutely insane. But you may be confident, you may be assured that the Supreme Court won't do something like this. It's so crazy that they can't do it. Well, let's just go to a Supreme Court decision that they made a couple days ago. I already brought up how they got rid of Roe v. Wade. Let's go to a decision they just made really recently. Supreme Court justices reject Colorado law banning conversion therapy for LGBTQ minors. Yeah, the Supreme Court said that conversion therapy of LGBTQ minors is okay. It's A-okay. This is the Supreme Court we're dealing with. And not only was this decision awful, multiple of the liberal justices even got on board with the conservative justice in this. I believe this was an 8-1 decision. Right here, yep. In an 8-1 decision, the court said the law, as applied to talk therapy, represented an egregious assault on free speech in the First Amendment. No, it did not. Therapy is between the client and the therapist. And trying to change somebody's sexuality is a form of abuse. So no, it's not an infringement on the freedom of speech. Not whatsoever. But they just don't care. They don't see the LGBT community as human. And they don't see immigrants as human, which is why they're trying to get rid of birthright citizenship. This Supreme Court has made terrible decision after terrible decision. It is something that they have done over and over again. So I've lost a little bit of faith that they will come down on the right path of history on this birthright citizenship decision. And to be honest, the only reason I do lean in favor that they will decide on the right side, that they will rule against Trump's executive order, but I'm not like particularly confident. I would say it's like a 65% chance they rule against Donald Trump, because we know Alito and Clarence Thompson are obviously going to vote and rule in favor of Donald Trump. The other conservative justices, I'm not sure. They're kind of swing votes, but I just can't see them realistically doing this. It's because of what the precedent it would set. I mean, if they rule on this, it basically says that any president going forward can just change the Constitution through executive order. Or they would have to find some crazy, weird way to get around that. But that's the main reason why I don't see this going through. Because if Trump didn't do this through executive order, I do think this would be basically a 50-50, whether the Supreme Court decides to rule with him or against him. But because he did it through executive order and was so emboldened by it, and because Trump's also not as popular anymore, I do find it hard to believe that it will pass, but I'm not as confident as other people. Like I said, I still think there's like a 35-40% chance that that the conservative justices just do rule in favor of it, because they hate immigrants. They've put so many anti-immigrant rulings out. They have helped Trump in his master deportation agenda so many times that I do see it as a genuine possibility, even though it is unlikely. And another reason I find it unlikely is because they want to see Republicans succeed. And again, getting back to the elections and how this would affect the elections, Trump is already unpopular. You can get by with really controversial laws when you're popular because your base is willing to support you and come out and defend you. But when you're already unpopular, controversial bills, agendas, rulings do not favor you. They just make you more unpopular because your base is demotivated. They're not going to come out and support you. So whenever you do something controversial, your side's going to sit on the couch and not do anything while the other side, the opposition, just relentlessly attacks you for this position. So yeah, it would also hurt Republicans' chances in 2026. And the Supreme Court doesn't want Republicans to do bad in 2026 because Alito, one of the justices, has literally said that he views the United States as like a pivotal moment. He is at war with the left. He has said crazy things like that before. So, no, he cares about this election. Though I do think even though he cares, Alito's still actually going to rule in favor of Trump. I think it'll probably be, my guess is going to be like a 6-3 decision in favor against Donald Trump. But you never know. And if it did go through, I mean, it's just going to get worse. Right now, Democrats are looking at something like this. With the war continuing in Iran, and now with a controversial decision in the Supreme Court that would end birthright citizenship, a literal constitutional amendment. I mean, think about the chaos that would ensue if you got rid of birthright citizenship. Like, what's the new system of citizenship? Bloodline? Is it, race or how long you've been here? Like, they didn't even go into favor what their idea of a citizen is. Trump just wants the ability to take away your citizenship so he can deport you. That's what he wants to do. So it would be insane. So the ICE raids would only get worse. They're at the airports right now. They're killing people in Minnesota, like you've already seen, like what they did with Renee Good. This this midterm wave would only grow. You would probably see something like, you would genuinely probably see something like this if the Supreme Court rules in favor of Donald Trump. This would be, I would say, if the Supreme Court actually does rule in favor of Trump here, this genuinely might be the worst decision that the Supreme Court has ever made. If not worst, it's probably top 3. I mean, what else is worse? Obviously, Dred Scott's pretty up there. That still might be worse. And then Plaguey versus Ferguson. If you don't know what those cases are, they basically, Dred Scott denied citizenship for black people and, kept them enslaved and said they weren't American citizens, so they didn't have rights. So terrible ruling. And then Plaguey versus Ferguson basically upheld Jim Crow laws in the South and segregationist practices. This would be up there. I would say this would be up there because you would see so much oppression from the government and ICE if they rule in favor of Trump here. Luckily, if I had to bet, I don't think they're going to do that. But I can't say I'm like super confident they won't either, which is it's just really sad. It goes to show how far we've fallen as a country that I can't say with like utter certainty that the Supreme Court just won't rip away everyone's citizenship. And if they do, we better see a map like this. Actually, no, we better see a map like this. Because these people are a danger to our country. And they hate the people living in our country. But as of now, we don't know what's going to happen. We just have to wait and see. If they do rule in favor of Trump, you got to get out in the streets. You got to protest. You got to stand up for immigrants. You have to stand up for everyone. Think about it. They're gonna take away everyone's citizenship. If you protest the war in Iran, they're just gonna be like, you're not a citizen. You're an Iranian spy, and deport you. Stuff like that. They will do it. Trump has already deported so many American citizens. It's a sad reality that our country has come to, that this case is even being taken up by the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court should have thrown this out. They should have said that this is complete BS and not even worth our time. But here we are. Here we are debating something as stupid as this. But I think that's where we're going to wrap it up. I just wanted to cover this because it is very important. Like I said, this could end up being one of the most important decisions that the Supreme Court has ever made. We'll just have to see what happens. We'll probably learn the ruling of this sometime in the early summer. I would say sometime in May or June, maybe July at the latest. But that almost concerns me. I feel like the later we wait, the more concerning it is. But we'll have to see. We'll have to see. So make sure you get out there when you're at your No Kings rallies. Have a sign that says you support birthright citizenship. That's how you got your citizenship. That's how I got my citizenship. That's how every single individual in this country got their citizenship. This would be government overreach that we've never seen before if they take away people's citizenship. I mean, it's funny how I remember back in like the 2000s, the early 2010s, when Republicans talked about states' rights and how they hate government oppression. And here they are with the most authoritarian regime we've seen in so long. I mean, Donald Trump has been one of, if not the most authoritarian presidents we've ever had. He's got to go. The midterms have to be a bloodbath for Republicans. It's the only way to get these people to wake up, because clearly the pain and suffering of the country won't do it. So maybe defeat will make them moderate on issues. All right, but that's where we're going to wrap it up. If you guys like the content, like, comment, and subscribe. I'll see you guys in the next one.